Hi everyone, how you doing? You getting by? It's Thursday at 4:36 p.m. Thursday, July 21st, 2020. The price of Bitcoin is $23,038.99, down 2.21% from yesterday. The price of Ethereum was $1,574.29, up 1.79% from yesterday. And my favorite microcap token, Giddy, is up ever so slightly, up 0.17% to 4 cents, 4.709 cents. It's pretty low, historically speaking. There was a time not that long ago when it was at about 30 cents, and now it's at 4 and change. Yikes. Still heartbroken by how Giddy's played out, but I can't complain too much. It allowed me to shuffle my portfolio around in a way that let me exit some other worse positions, if that makes sense. Celsius specifically, Voyager, that whole debacle. Let's take a look at what's going on in the world of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. First of all, let's play our daily game. Crayon, the AI artist. We have a prompt from the comments in a previous video. The prompt is, heavenly Bitcoin Elysium space station ring with luscious fields of green and a starry night sky and a beautiful skyline. How imaginative. Thank you very much for that comment. Let's see what it comes up with. Jumping into the headlines. Former Coinbase manager and 2 others charged in a crypto insider trading scheme. This is at Coinbase, former Coinbase manager and 2 others. It was a manager and his brother and a friend. We've talked about this before at Coinbase because this is not new. It's not like they just did this last week. They're just being prosecuted for it now. And it's not like these are the only 3 people who've been involved. One of them an employee, the other 2 involved. This has been going on at Coinbase for a long time. And the reality is, this is the first time it's been prosecuted. Up to this point, why wouldn't you do this? You wouldn't do it because it's the wrong thing to do. But it would be pretty easy to convince yourself that it's a victimless crime. I mean, who are you robbing? The market, right? Buy before some big move, before something gets listed? Insider trading, but who's the victim of insider trading? It's just that it's unfair. You have a very slanted advantage over everybody else in the actual marketplace. Congress people do this all the time. When is the SEC going to come after Nancy Pelosi? I don't know, man. I don't know. This is a headline that's going around right now. 3 people have been charged in the first ever crypto insider trading tipping scheme. Like I said, this hasn't happened before. At least it hasn't been prosecuted before. The individuals were charged with wire fraud conspiracy and wire fraud in connection with a scheme to commit insider trading in cryptocurrency assets. Coinbase has been accused of this many times before, and just to show that, I pulled up the news headlines from last year, from January 1st to December 31st, 2021. And while the word fraud isn't necessarily prominent in these, they are all very ugly headlines. It's rare that Coinbase makes the news in a positive way, right? The IPO is probably a positive thing for them, but other times it hasn't been so great. Coinbase CEO stole blockchain startup's work, lawsuit alleges. Is Coinbase safe? Coinbase hit with class action lawsuit over hacked emails. That was all 2021, and there are many of them. It makes the news a lot. How about 2020? Similar story. Don't ask me why this page has a margin and the other one didn't. Coinbase says it halted more than $280,000 in Bitcoin transactions. Twitter hack involving Coinbase. FBI expects a rise in scams involving cryptocurrency and presumably Coinbase. There's a lot of ugly headlines that involve Coinbase. They are frequently being accused of bad action or inaction where they should be. As a startup that's growing rapidly, this is something that I learned not just from my experience in a startup, because the startups that I've been involved in haven't had tremendous success. I haven't been a part of a startup that's IPO'd or anything like that. But Reid Hoffman, who started LinkedIn, I believe, and has a great podcast on startups, he talked about this pretty explicitly in one of his episodes, talking about how at a startup you're going to have a lot of fires burning, that you want to put them all out, you can't. You do not have the resources and the time to put out all of the fires burning within your startup. You have to be very selective. Which huge fiery problems are you going to focus on right now? I think Coinbase has been in that place for years. They've been unable to address all of the many systemic problems at play in their organization. And now it's starting to catch up with them because they are actually going to be prosecuted for this kind of thing. It's not just an accusation. It's criminal case that they're involved with. So you've probably heard by now that President Joseph Biden has contracted COVID-19, just like the president before him. Don't worry, he assured everybody it's going to be okay. Right, so an extremely unpopular president who is famous for saying things that are patently untrue is telling us it's going to be okay. I mean, I don't have my heart invested in this. I really don't. The real question is, if something really does happen to him, Kamala Harris would take the wheel at the executive office. And so do you like that? Do you want that to happen? I don't, but I don't have a lot of politicians that I like and prefer. Moving on, I don't want to spend time dwelling on politics because it's such an ugly field. This from an interview with Natalie Brunell and Aubrey Strobel. Strobel? Is the accent on the first consonant or the second? Strobel or Strobel? I don't know. Nat Brunell is a reporter who is the host of Coin Stories, a recently launched Bitcoin podcast. She comes from the conventional finance journalism world and is now basically full-time into Bitcoin. She was on stage at Bitcoin 2022 in April. And Aubrey Strobel, if you don't know her, she does comms and PR at Lolly, but also has gotten involved in a lot of other things because she's become kind of an influencer and voice herself on her own merits. And they're talking here about Nick Carter, which we've talked about fairly extensively in this live stream on this channel. And she says the same thing that I have said. Nick Carter is not the enemy, you guys. The enemy is the broader system that you're trying to overturn. This is the problem with the Puritans who say you're not pure enough to be a part of our club. It's like, guys, you've got bigger enemies out there. You've got actual enemies who are going to do genuine harm. This isn't just a question of like, who's more pure. That just seems like, I don't know, an ego-driven thing. I want to be better and more pure than the guy next to me. It's false piety. It's piety. It's pride parading as piety. How's that for alliteration? There's actual enemies out there in the world. Somebody like Elizabeth Warren who wants to squash Bitcoin and put it under the thumb of the government. That's your actual enemy, not Nick Carter, who might have some ideas that are slightly divergent from yours. Sorry. Let's listen to Aubrey Strobel, see what she has to say.
Why do we attack our own? I think we're attacking the wrong person here. Like, Nick Carter is not the enemy. The enemy is the system, the man. I don't understand why we're attacking our own people. It's stupid. So that culture is disgusting to me. I don't like that. Canceling people in general, I don't like cancel culture. I think cancel culture is dumb. No one's ever sorry if they put out an apology. It's BS. As someone who does PR and comms and has written people's apology statements, they're not even writing it. And they don't mean it sometimes. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And you put it out there just to please the crowds, like we're almost taking steps backwards, right? That's not freedom. That's not what anything that Bitcoiners stand for. So the toxic part needs to go. Why do we...
Fully agreed, Aubrey. You know, the thing about extremism, the thing about being on the far end of a spectrum is the horseshoe effect. It curves around. You start to act a lot like the people that you ostensibly detest and are separate from. Extremists, Puritans, fundamentalists act very similar regardless of their ideology and dogma. This is what I'm opposed to. I'm trying to reject dogmas and ideologies, right? Those are shorthand so that you don't have to think for yourself on every given topic, and so that you can have strength in numbers by banding together with a mob of other people, and that, you know, you can run around with your torches and pitchforks and take down your enemies. That's a dangerous world and not one I want to be part of. And I agree with Aubrey. There are actual enemies out there. Nick Carter is not one of them. We've got a lot of audio coming from these media today in my rundown of what's going on. This is from Pete Rizzo with a video of Charlie Shrem. If you're not familiar with Charlie Shrem, he is a prominent character in the early history of Bitcoin. And if this were going to be dramatized into a, I don't know, So, actually, I do know. You know how the early story of Facebook was dramatized in The Social Network? Well, The Social Network was based on a book by Ben Mesrick called The Accidental Millionaires? Accidental Billionaires. That's it. The Accidental Billionaires. I have not read this book, but I have read other books by Ben Mesrick, including a follow-up of sorts. See, The Accidental Billionaires, the founding of Facebook, was turned into the movie The Social Network. Well, some of those same characters show up in another book by Ben Mesrick called The Bitcoin Billionaires. And this is kind of an unofficial sequel to The Social Network. And there's a character who plays prominently in this story. It talks about the Winklevoss twins, it talks about Eric Voorhees, and it talks about Charlie Shrem. Man at hand right here. And when this eventually gets turned into a movie, I am curious to see who will play Charlie Shrem. It will probably be somebody like Josh Gad, a comedic, slapstick, Jerry Lewis type character, because Charlie, you gotta love him. He's furry as a Wookiee, or an Ewok rather. Charlie is not a deep intellectual. And that's not just me being mean. That's observed by most people who meet or talk to or watch Charlie. It's very prominent in the book Bitcoin Billionaires, where the Winklevoss twins are painted as they are. Wealthy, successful, early investors caught the vision, and Olympic rowers and identical twins and basically Adonis cloned. Charlie is kind of the opposite of that. And this exemplifies that pretty clearly. Let's listen to what Charlie has to say. Pete Rizzo chiming in with, "Crypto is a dead end." Why? Why, Pete? Let's listen. Let's see what Charlie has to say.
See Fox News and 60 Minutes. I've been called a Bitcoin legend, even one of the world's most sought-after crypto experts. And today, I want to show you my next big project, a project that I believe will help you lock in incredible gains in 2022. It's called the Crypto Cash Calendar. Essentially, this is a tool that pinpoints breakout cryptocurrencies before they potentially soar in value. In 2021 alone, we saw multiple cryptos skyrocket more than 10,000%. Sandbox went up over 15,000%. Gala went up over 47,000%. Axie Infinity is up over 18,000%. And that's more than 60,000% worth of gains. And likely, you didn't invest in any of them. And the reason why is simple. No one knew about them. The majority of investors don't know anything about the world's hottest crypto opportunities. But this calendar, it's going to change that. With this calendar, you're going to have the chance to learn about tomorrow's billion-dollar crypto opportunities long before they hit the mainstream markets. So just click Watch Now to learn how you can get your copy today.
All right, Charlie. I get it. I understand why you would make a commercial like this. But the idea of a calendar that tells you what 1000x investment is coming up is utterly impossible. It's not even like an unlikely, oh, I don't think this is going to work. It's totally antithetical to the very idea of a market. Sorry, if you tell people that what's going to 1000x doesn't just automatically do what you want it to do. And every single token that he just mentioned, those are all like metaverse tokens. Those rallied and then all crashed. Everything metaverse crashed hard between when he's talking about that rise and now. They're all down something insane like 95%. So even if you had bought Axie Infinity or Gala or Mana or whatever it might have been, you'd have lost all of that value. I interviewed Charlie for my documentary Life on Bitcoin. I met up with him and a bunch of other people at a conference in Atlanta, and then actually Charlie gave me a ride to the airport, and we filmed an interview while we were driving. And I gotta tell you, we had a driver. Charlie wasn't behind the wheel, but it was him and I believe his then girlfriend, now wife. And I think Charlie was a little bit tipsy in that interview. He talked about how he was trying to implement all of these measures to make sure that he was regulatory compliant. Shortly thereafter, Charlie was arrested for not being regulatory compliant. Charlie, I wish him well. As a person, I have no ill will toward Charlie, but I don't think he's the sharpest tack in the box. Not pretending that I necessarily am, but this is not a deep intellectual with great insight that you need to be following. This is embarrassing. So, moving on. Sorry, Charlie, nothing personal. Jimmy Song. You know, Jimmy Song is a Bitcoin hardliner who has been in the space for a long time and has a loud voice, and I've heard him speak at conferences too, but I got to be honest with you, I don't think Jimmy Song is the sharpest tack in the box. So while we've got some people saying that crypto is a dead end, here, look, here's Charlie Shrem, right? He'll show us that how dumb all of these cryptos are. Well, Jimmy Song, on the other hand, is a Bitcoin hardliner. I don't think he's doing anyone any favors here. Quote, every Bitcoin moderate wants some carve out from Bitcoin maximalists for their project/coin. That's how you know they're affinity scammers. That's right, folks. There can't be honest differences of opinion. There can't be nuance. There can't be shades of gray. Nope. You're either into Bitcoin or you're a scammer, right? It's active. You're with us or you're actively maliciously against us. You guys sound like religious fundamentalists. Truly, you sound like religious fundamentalists. And from somebody who came from a pretty orthodox religion, I understand what that looks like, and it's not a good look, you guys. This way lies madness. Don't go full hardline. Don't go full fundamentalist. Don't go... Yeah, you don't want to be a fundy, either religious or otherwise, political or... I don't know, techno-optimist? What would you call this category? Sorry, Jimmy, there are people who have honest disagreements with the Bitcoin hardliner stance. There are very smart people a lot smarter than Jimmy Song, who think that, nah, you're wrong about this one. Sorry, bud. The hardline stance may be directionally correct, but your exactitude, your everything has to be 100% aligned to this view, that fundamentalist view is a non-starter. It doesn't work. It's going to drive people away. It's going to ensure that you miss important things that are happening elsewhere. All right, moving on. Here's another one, Samson Mao, who I believe is also a hardliner. Bitcoin will decouple from everything in time it was designed to. I think he's right. And somebody down here in the comments pointed out that there was a notable decoupling in 1971. If you're not familiar with the site, WTF happened in 1971, or what happened in 1971, can't remember. Go ahead and Google either of those phrases. You will find it. The short answer is this is when the United States went off the gold standard, fully 100% off and permanently off. This is when Nixon did away with it. Temporarily, we've never gone back or even close, nor could we if we wanted to. And look what happened. Compensation stagnated while productivity continued to decline. This is the root cause of so many of our social ills. And what Samson is suggesting is that we will see a decoupling similar to this with Bitcoin at some point. I don't know what that point is, but I think he's probably right. In fact, I'm banking on it. I'm relying on it. I think Bitcoin will continue to climb while the dollar continues to decline. Adam Back, if you're not familiar with Adam Back, he's the founder of Blockstream. Blockstream is one of the developers of the core code on Bitcoin. And Adam Back is one of the very few individuals who has a pedigree that predates Bitcoin. Adam Back's work on Hashcash is cited in the Bitcoin white paper. So Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever he, she, or they are, was looking at Adam Back's work and saying, all right, I think I can take this prior technology that Adam developed and mix it with these other things that I'm doing and create something new. A peer-to-peer electronic cash, Bitcoin. So Adam Back's pedigree in cryptography and peer-to-peer cash is pretty unquestioned. And he is also citing Samson Mao, Samson in this interview, who talks about how important apolitical money is. Let's listen to what Samson has to say.
Can you be crushed by the dominant political party? Could they freeze all your assets and lock you in the country without having to do anything, without having to put you in jail? You can do that if you control the money supply, because in effect, if I freeze your money, you can no longer do anything. If you have a freedom of speech, it doesn't matter if you cannot pay for the taxi or pay for the subway to get you to a rally to protest. So it's really important that we go back to apolitical money and have this concept of cash. Now, I think central banks could do it correctly if they implemented a CBDC that was private and it had a way to transact confidentially. But that is not the motivation for a CBDC. Even in Canada, the Bank of Canada posted a job posting looking for engineers to build a system.
Okay, so that's Samson Mao, and Adam is responding and saying, well said, Samson. Bitcoin is apolitical, bearer, unseizable money, and that is what matters. Stablecoins are better or greater than CBDCs. In fact, he wrote CDBCs, central digital bank currencies. He got that backwards. Sorry, Adam. CBDCs. In fact, CBDCs are systems of control, worse than bank accounts, certainly worse than paper cash, worse than stablecoins, and much, much worse than Bitcoin. Fully agreed. CBDCs are a Black Mirror nightmare. They are totally dystopian horror technology that we should resist with everything we have. They're not good for anybody but central banks, and as recent inflation has shown, central banks are not your friends. The people ruling, they're not your friends. The powerful, not your friends. Powerful people want to preserve their power. They want to preserve the institutions that have made them power. They don't and cannot worry about average people. It doesn't happen. It systemically is precluded from happening. You don't have powerful people at the head of powerful organizations say, you know what? I'm going to decrease the power of this central institution and myself for the good of mankind. Doesn't really happen. They lose power. They lose grip. That happens. They break. But it doesn't happen voluntarily by the people running those organizations. CBDCs are a nightmare that should be avoided at all costs. Alex Gladstein, speaking of how this is important and unseizable money, Alex Gladstein is the Chief Strategy Officer at the Human Rights Foundation. I have also met Alex at conferences before. He says, I just met with somebody who relied on Bitcoin to escape from a dictatorship. Things remain difficult for them and for their country, but they have been able to start a new life in the free world, in large part thanks to Satoshi's invention. They told me Bitcoin is hope. Nice. I think Alex gets this better than most. He wrote a book called Check Your Financial Privilege. Check Your Financial Privilege. Basically talking about Westerners, Americans, you might not get why Bitcoin is important, but anybody from a oppressive regime or a country with a failing currency, anybody under a dictatorship, they understand why free apolitical money is important. And he's been a great exponent of that, sharing with people why this is critical. And notably, the guy's not coming from some crypto-libertarian background, right? He's not anti-government. He's pro-democracy, and probably in an American political sense, you would probably characterize him as left of center. But he loves Bitcoin. So that bucks the trend of people trying to politicize Bitcoin and say that it's a Republican thing or a libertarian thing, which I'm glad to see. I don't think it should be politicized in that way. This serves everybody. Also from Gladstein, Paul Krugman drops a I was wrong about inflation column in the New York Times. The whole experience has been a lesson in humility, he says. Expect a lot of similar I was wrong about Bitcoin articles from the pundit class in the coming decade. I don't know, man. I don't know if we're going to see those I was wrong articles. I'm actually quite surprised that we're seeing this I was wrong about inflation from Paul Krugman. Krugman, if you will recall, he's the Nobel Award-winning economist who writes for the New York Times, who, at least as far as I remember, what I remember about Krugman is how wrong he was about the internet. He is famous for saying this. There we are. By 2005 or so, it will become clear that the internet's impact on the economy has been no greater than the fax machine. He said this in 1998. He, of course, was hysterically wrong. Krugman is not somebody that you should listen to really about anything, certainly not technology. He hates Bitcoin. He's said that Bitcoin is dumb, it's a scam, it's horrible, it's evil. He's called it evil. Get real, my guy. You're not even pretending to be any kind of cognitive rational thinker on this. You're just getting moralistic about it. Bitcoin is evil? That's one of the headlines from one of his New York Times columns. Get out of town. This private island in the Bahamas, Chub K, is seeking to adopt a Bitcoin standard due to a lack of financial inclusion, being isolated from traditional banking services. They aim to create a circular Bitcoin economy and serve as a model for the rest of the Bahamas. Sounds cool. And a circular Bitcoin economy is something that's very interesting to me. It's something that I really should engage with more. Use Bitcoin, save in Bitcoin, only use it to transact as much as I possibly can. You know, I've spent a fair amount of Bitcoin in the past. If you'll recall, I made a documentary about using nothing but Bitcoin for about 3 months. But honestly, since then, I haven't used it that much. I have used it since then, but not regularly. I should probably get back in the habit. Continuing on this thread, ChubK is seeking a Lightning Wallet service provider to bridge infrastructure gaps to onboard a Bitcoin standard for all. Explore more about how this island aims to pave the way to a Bitcoin standard in the Bahamas in my latest in Bitcoin Magazine. So I would love to see a circular Bitcoin economy happening somewhere. Bitcoin is legal tender in El Salvador, but it's my understanding that it is far from being a circular economy at this point. It's not even necessarily the de facto standard. In looking into this recent Coinbase debacle, and I guess I've thought about this recently as well, I'm shocked how much the Coinbase logo just looks like the Target logo. Like, you can overlay those onto each other. They're nearly identical. I know it's just a circle inside another circle, but my goodness, the proportions are exact. I thought that was kind of funny, and tweeted such. If you haven't seen this video from Gladstein, this is kind of the signal amidst the noise. This is the people in power, the Federal Reserve, the politicians. They are not your friends. And I love supercuts like this that make it so transparently clear that they are not honest, that they are not doing you any favors. Let's have a listen, shall we?
Can you characterize everything that the Fed has done this past week as essentially flooding the system with money?
Yes, exactly.
And there's no end to your ability to do that?
There's no end to our ability to do that.
And we believe that achieving inflation that averages 2% over time helps ensure that longer-term inflation expectations remain well anchored at our longer-run 2% objective.
Exactly. I would bet even in 5 or 6 years, I'm no longer talking about Bitcoin as Treasury Secretary. I'll have other priorities.
You'll be loaded up on Bitcoin and a gazillionaire.
I can assure you I will personally not be loaded up on Bitcoin.
Okay. Never say never.
From a purchasing power standpoint, if you own cash in the world today, you know your central bank has an avowed goal of depreciating its value 2% per year. So you have, in essence, a wasting asset in your hand. So Bitcoin, I think it's a great speculation.
That's the signal, my friends. Powerful institutions are dismissing Bitcoin. They're going to fight Bitcoin. They're going to tell you that it's not important, that it doesn't do anything, that it's evil, that it's a scam, that you should really be using the US dollar because we, the centralized institutions, we know what we're doing. We'll take care of it. We can manage everything. They are wrong. They are lying. They are false. Ignore them utterly, please. 180 degrees in the other direction. If you want to watch the rest of this video, I believe it is pinned on the account of Eat, Pray, Hodl. This is a great video. It's a good pin, and I should really collect a few like this because this is not the only one I've ever seen that lays it out so clearly. Like, these guys are not your friends. Don't ever pretend that they are. All right. I got to go. It's 5 o'clock. It's been fun. Oh, we got to look at our crayon. There it is. Look at that. Heavenly Bitcoin Elysium space station ring with luscious fields of green and a starry night sky and a beautiful skyline. That's great. Lovely. I like this one. I like this one. This one is very space station-y. That's cool. All right, friends. Let me know down in the comments what you want to talk about in the future. I'm going to upload a edited, scripted video very soon, but we'll continue to do these live streams. Thanks. It's been